Hey, Gil checking in, future Virginia Rancher here. It's been a while since created any Battlefield of Furfields content. I've been on the road for 3 months trying to educate myself. But I'm back and I'm gonna slowly start producing a YouTube for each of the farms and ranches I visited. This first one goes out to the 7 sons. They truly catapulted my journey and ignited the program Battlefield of Furfields into existence. So stay tuned, we're gonna watch this podcast first. Brock was able to bring this podcast to life. He and Blake and Blaine was facilitating the podcast by having a regenerative conversations with me to talk about what the program is about and what's the journey and who's the journey for. So stay tuned, watch this podcast, and at the end, we're gonna talk and I'm gonna share my lessons learned with you guys for the young aspiring farmers and ranchers and veterans that want to enter this program to become a regenerative rancher or farmer or to find their next calling and purpose. Watch the podcast. All right, I'm back. I truly hope you guys enjoyed the podcast and probably learned something. And if you know anybody that's interested in regenerative agriculture, young aspiring farmers and ranchers, even veterans, show this video, show the podcast. There's a way to get in there. Just know that this program is being built in flight, right? But there's a way now. There's a way to reduce the barriers into this industry. Use me as a contact. But anyways, before I go any further, what I learned, I wanted to introduce the brothers, right? You got Blake, who's the Chief Ranch Farming Officer. You got Blaine, who's the CEO of Distribution and the Visionary. You got Bryce, who's the Poultry and Hand Gear Production. And Bryce was actually the first brother I met, and he's the one I conducted link up on day 0. He's the one who gave me the quick introduction and snapshot of the farm and the layout. And then you got Brock, who is the creative lead, the guy that put the podcast together. That's the guy, Brock, very creative. You got Brooks, who's the CEO of the distribution. Very good dude, very intelligent. They just had their baby, by the way, so congratulate them. Or they just found out their gender of their baby. Bruce, he's the poultry operations, and Bruce, man, very intelligent. He's able to break down the science of the chickens, right? Which, and again, I know nothing. So everything he was saying, anything that any of the brothers were saying was all new to me. I learned a lot. You also got Brant, who's the supply chain director. And believe it or not, the backbone in any operation, in any business, is supply chain. Is supply. If you don't have a supply chain director or supply chain manager, you can't get food to the table. You can't get your products out the door. And that goes hand in hand with marketing and social media, right? I mean, each of the brothers have their own team and they all have their own business within the Seven Sons Farm. And each brother has incredible employees or teammates underneath them that work with them. So I was able to meet each one of them throughout my week there. So give a shout out to Seven Sons. Look at their website, their farm, Seven Sons. Incredible family. And if you know anything about business, there's a lot of books out there that talk about business and why not to do business with brothers or sisters and family, because it's hard, right? You got to manage the family dynamics on top of your business. And you always hear advice not to do it. I'm going to tell you something. The Seven Sons bust that myth day in, day out. They truly work together as a family and the professionals. They have they understand there's a thin line between family and understanding. They are able to separate themselves and be professionals, right? But again, Daisy, right, conducted link up with Bryce.
So we have their water. This is their storage tank, or the water storage tank. We have the feeders that are on skids. Feeders are on skids. I think some of them are on platforms. We'll check out some of the other buildings. All of them are a little different. We have the roofs.
And I met their parents, Lee and Beth, and they gave me a farm tour. I was able to see their hogs, chickens, cattle, even bison, and sheep. He shared the warehouse where all the productions happen, the grace cart, the cold storage, and the egg processing plant. They showed me their offices. Bryce took me to lunch, and we had more conversations. He gave me a tour of the farm store and provided me lodging. Now, those couple hours was great. Instantly, it reaffirmed that this is my next calling. So thank you Bryce. All right, so day 1, day 3. Like any other farm, you always start off with chores, right? So Blake coordinated and developed a schedule to spend time each day with each of the brothers, and they put me to work, right? And best way to learn is by putting you to work. Man, I was making fences with the different managers of the protein species, and during that time, not only was I fully immersed in learning by doing, but I had the opportunity to ask questions to truly learn what it takes to execute and integrate the animals into the business. It was truly phenomenal, right? This time I was exposed to what it takes to sustain and ensure animals are cared for regeneratively. Anything from mending fences, feeding animals, or moving animals to different pasture. The conversation alone was critical to my development and growth, right? Being able to see the execution and the integrating of the business was huge for me, and I was able to participate in key meetings throughout the week. Being able to observe and see what it takes to work in the business and on the business. And if you heard the podcast, Blaine said it perfectly, right? Biology, soil, and land is a self-managing system, right? If done right. But business is not. It takes people to run a business, right? It takes the right people, the right talent, the right skill set to truly manage a business, especially in agriculture. It's really hard. You almost have to be an astronaut, like Dr. Alan Williams continues to say throughout his teachings, right? So day 1, day 3 was a bunch of chores and learning and just getting hands dirty while I asked a lot of questions, right? And day 4 was very critical for me, right? I was able to participate in their L10 meeting, right? And if you read this book called Traction, it's a great book, right? And they recommend me to read this book. And it's a business model, right? And I was able to see them not only run the meeting, but them execute and how they integrate this business model into their business, right? They do it weekly, and it's led by Blaine Hitzfield, right? It's a structured event and a set of tools and principles that help entrepreneurs run their business. The conference or the meeting focuses on the 6 critical components of every business, right? Vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. This book alone not only teaches you, but shows you how to run it and how to integrate it and execute it on a weekly basis on your farm. This model, Traction, or the EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, will prevent you from reaching the ceiling. It will always keep you accountable. It will always keep you on track, hence the title Traction. And it will allow you to not only expand, but to grow individually, collectively, and as a business. So if I ever start my ranch or farm or become a manager, I am implementing this system because it just makes sense. And a lot of the systems here, a lot of the mythology and the principle is exactly what we do in the military, just different vernacular, different verbiage, right? So the L10 meeting, right? They run it once a week. We talked about total sales, targeted goals per topic, margins, economic sales. Talked about new customers, farm store revenue, previous sales, company rock, marketing, banking, ownership, contractors, the production model. Everything. It talked about everything. The do's and don'ts, access, rate of return on investment, book appointments, if we need to restructure. It was incredible. It's hard to truly capture everything, but this book, pick it up, and it will tell you how to run the business, right? And they even provided me 2 YouTube links. One called the How to Run an Effective Meeting tutorial, and a YouTube explaining the book I just showed you, right? The Entrepreneur Operating System EOS, explained under 3 minutes. So if you want to understand this book in less than 3 minutes, check that link out. It's called the Entrepreneur Operating System. You can find it on YouTube. It's not under 3 minutes. And I promise you, I watched it, and that kind of triggered me to actually read the book. So do it. So then after the LTL meeting, it was an hour long. Blaine took the time to teach me on a dry erase board about his philosophy and vision on marketing. I feel like I felt like I needed a certificate of completion when he got done teaching. He was really good at teaching, and he has a teacher's heart. And if I can try to explain it myself, it was great, right? It talks about the different pillars of marketing, right? He broke it down on dry erase board, and he broke it down with quality, trust, and convenience. And I like what he talked about when it comes to quality. If you truly are regenerative and try to restore your souls in our truly pasture-raised per area protein species, you are already competitive, right? You're already competing with other commercial farmers and commercial ranches because you already are above those commercial farmers and ranchers because the quality is there. So the quality is there already. Focus on creating trust or establishing trust with your customers and establish convenience, right? So quality, trust, convenience, 3 pillars. Without any of those pillars, the table will fall. And then he broke down convenience into 3 more categories. And if you look on dry erase board above, he broke them down to visibility, accessibility, and availability. And that goes directly hand in hand to marketing and logistics, right? How can I get our quality, nutrient-dense foods to our customers? How do I create that access? How do I get them to come to me? Or how do I get my food to their table? And that takes a lot of work. It takes a team, right? The power of marketing, the power of social media, and understanding the intimacy of logistics and distribution, and creating a framework to create trust, right? Or to foster trust within your local community. It's hard work. So a lot of the effort has to go to the marketing, the distribution, creating that trust, because the quality is already there if you are practicing regenerative. If you're truly raising these animals on pastures and not on feedlots and the way the commercial farmers and ranchers are doing it, right? The quality is over there. It's not it's how you connect now, by trust. It was great to learn from Blaine using a dry erase board, which have resonated with me, right? Because a lot of the teachings we do in the military is through dry erase board to connect to students. Blaine was able to connect to me as a participant from battlefields to fertile fields. But yeah, man, so real quick, I learned a lot. Everything from mending fences all the way to the business side of the house, right? And I was able to share my own lessons learned, right? The difference between leadership management, and you can't be a leader without practicing the art of managing, and you can't be a manager without practicing the art of leadership, right? Because to be an effective manager, right, running daily operations, how do you connect the people to have buy-in in your vision? That's when the leader comes in. It's all about influence. How do you get leaders, how do you get your teammates and your employees to work not only for you, but with you, to follow you. And that's where leadership comes in, because leadership is truly a relationship, right? Connect to your employees, connect to your teammates so they can further work for you. Not only that, it affects overturn, right? You want to keep your employees and team as long as you can, right? And then there's management, right? You can't have one without the other. They overlap. You just know when to separate it, right? And I was able to share some lessons learned and how to really connect with your teammates when you're busy. Because when you're an entrepreneur, when you're the CEO, you're the visionary, you're the head guy per your business, it's hard to truly make time to connect with your teammates. But like anything else, you got to put in the time, right? You got to sacrifice. So now it means you put more hours in a day after your busy schedule to work on the business. But how do you work in the business? And a lot of working in the business is the people. Great, you can work on the cattle, the sheep, maneuvering, which is in the business, but people is in the business as well. You have to work in the business, connect with the people in your team to better sustain the business, right? So they go hand in hand. There's knowing how to separate. But thank you to the 7 sons, to all the brothers and to all the family members that truly catapulted this journey. I learned a lot. And now I'm able to ask more specific and strategic questions for the next farm and ranches I visit, which I did. Because of the 7 sons, I was able to ask better questions because I had no idea where to start, right? Remember, we're building this plane in flight. I barely know how to spell cow. So I had to expose myself to the 7 sons. Once they exposed me to a lot, I was able to reflect on everything I learned and develop questions for the next farm or ranch. So stay tuned for the next YouTube, and the next farm I'm going to is David Brandt, who is the godfather of soil and the co-founder of Soil Health Academy in Ohio. But so thank you, Seven Sons, and thank you for creating a podcast that truly catapulted this my journey and ignited the program to existence. So thank you.